Hello, my friend. Thank you for taking a moment to sit down with me today. I know life can feel crowded. We carry so many things at once. Our health, our children, our worries, and all those little tasks that fill a day before we even notice. But every now and then, the Lord places something on our heart that makes us pause, take a breath, and ask ourselves, Lord, are you trying to tell me something? That's exactly how I felt on that quiet November morning. I woke up with a feeling I can't quite put into words, a kind of stillness you only understand if you've ever had a dream that touches something deep in your spirit. Have you ever opened your eyes and sensed right away that what you saw was more than a dream? That it carried a weight, a meaning, a whisper from somewhere higher? I had a dream about the rapture. Not the kind of dream you forget by lunchtime. This one stayed with me, like someone had come to visit, left a note on the kitchen table, and slipped away before dawn. You pick up that note, and the more you read it, the more you know it wasn't meant to be ignored. I want you to picture this with me for a moment. You're sitting inside a familiar church. The wooden pews, the soft glow of the lights, the air that feels like it's been warmed by many Thanksgivings and Christmas Eve services. Everything looks ordinary, but deep down, you sense the Lord watching your thoughts more closely than usual. In my dream, I was sitting there among believers, yet somehow I felt distant. And what troubled me most was that when the Lord tried to speak to me through someone, I couldn't hear his voice. That feeling of being present physically but spiritually distracted lingered in my heart long after I woke up. Have you ever sat through a sermon, nodded along, and yet your mind drifted to errands, old memories, or plans for the week? I think all of us, at some point in our lives, have felt that quiet tug pulling us away from what truly matters. I used to think I was strong, that because I'd walked with the Lord for years, seen prophetic dreams, and helped others navigate their faith, I'd somehow built up a shield. But this dream reminded me of a truth many of us forget. None of us are exempt. Not you, not me. Salvation is a gift, but staying awake, spiritually awake, is a daily decision. And the things that keep us from being ready for the rapture, they aren't always loud or dangerous. Sometimes they're gentle, pleasant, even beautiful. A lingering thought about a dream we haven't achieved, a relationship from the past, a little pride tucked away in our heart, a small distraction that slowly grows until it steals the throne where only Jesus should sit. A close friend of mine, a wise old pastor, once told me, "ST, the enemy doesn't always need to break you. Sometimes he just needs to keep you busy." And the older I get, the more I know he was right. The sweetest distractions can be the strongest chains. In the dream, I stood in a church that looked more like a concert than a place of worship. The music was loud, the lights were bright, people raised their hands, but something felt hollow. It wasn't about God anymore. It had become a performance, a stage, and that saddened me more than it angered me. I'm not sharing this to judge anyone. I'm sharing it because when I woke up, I realized the Lord was showing me how easy it is to be in church and still be far from Him. And then came the moment that shook me to the core. I looked in the dream and saw a mark on my forehead, something that made me think I had been counted among those left behind. For a breath or two, it felt like everything inside me collapsed. It's a feeling I wouldn't wish on anyone. But the Lord is gentle. That mark wasn't real. It was a symbol, a way of showing me how blending in with the world can make us look like we belong to it. Sometimes God doesn't send thunder. Sometimes He just holds up a mirror. And as I sat there that morning, letting the weight of it all sink in, I realized the dream wasn't meant to frighten me. It was meant to wake me up and remind me, and maybe remind you too, that the rapture isn't far, and our hearts matter more than anything else. If you're still here with me, stay a little longer. There's more to this dream, and I believe it might stir something in your spirit, the same way it stirred mine. As the dream continued, I found myself standing inside a crowded church. People were moving around, talking softly, the music filling the air. But even with all that life around me, I felt a strange loneliness, as if I was present, but not truly part of what was happening. That feeling reminded me of moments in real life when you're surrounded by familiar faces, yet something deep inside whispers that your heart isn't aligned with the room you're in. Maybe you felt that way before, a quiet discomfort you can't quite explain. I noticed a large bucket near the entrance, filled with offering money. It was so full it looked almost like a display. Something about it made me pause. Not because of the money itself, but because the whole scene felt off. If you've ever walked into a place of worship and felt the Holy Spirit nudge your heart, telling you to pay attention, you know exactly what I mean. It's not the kind of feeling that condemns, it's the kind that warns. I tried to find a seat, but every time I went to sit down, the chair was broken or already taken. At first, it frustrated me, but then, in that quiet, spiritual way dreams communicate, I realized that sometimes God keeps you from settling into a place not meant for you. Over the years, I've had many older folks tell me the same thing. I tried to fit in, but something just didn't feel right. And time after time, I've learned that this not fitting is God's kindness, not rejection. Then the scene shifted. I was suddenly walking through a beautiful, newly renovated city. The colors were bright, the buildings clean, the parks full of life. It was the kind of place that makes you want to explore, sit on a bench, have a cup of coffee, and think about all the pleasant things in life. I saw a woman in a soft blue dress, almost like a fairy tale character. I told her the dress was lovely, and she smiled. Such a simple moment, but in the dream it held meaning. Because beauty can be a distraction. Not all temptations come dressed as danger. Some come wrapped in charm, color, comfort, and even peace.
What's that right there?
Many times, the things that pull us away from God don't feel wrong at all. They feel warm. They feel exciting. They feel like opportunities or hobbies or dreams we've held on to for years. But even good things can become idols when we give them too much room in our hearts. I realized that everything in this part of the dream, the city, the atmosphere, the things that delighted me, were pieces of my real-life desires. Projects I wanted to do, songs I hoped to record, places I planned to visit. It was as if the dream gathered all of them together and gently asked me, "Are these taking up too much space inside you?" Idols don't always look like carved statues. Sometimes they look like plans or ambitions, or the life we wished we had. I remember a widow telling me once, "I didn't know my love for my grandson had become an idol. I gave him all the attention I used to give the Lord."
Another gentleman told me his garden, yes, just a garden, had slowly replaced his morning time with God. Not because gardening is wrong, but because it became the first thing he thought about every day. It's funny how the smallest things can quietly climb to first place. Then came the moment that shook me. A woman in the crowd looked at me with concern and said, "That doesn't come off." She pointed to my forehead. I touched it, and in the dream I felt a mark, something square, blue, outlined in black. My heart dropped. In that instant I thought, I've missed it. I've been counted among those left behind. It's hard to express what that feels like. A kind of spiritual shock, a grief deeper than fear. But before I could sink into despair, the woman and I locked eyes. We whispered the same word. Rapture. And then, faster than thought, we were lifted up. A pull from heaven itself. That moment, the terror of believing I was marked, followed by the sudden lifting, taught me something I'll never forget. The mark I saw wasn't literal. It was symbolic. A picture of what happens when our lives blend so deeply with the world that we begin to look like we belong to it. God wasn't condemning me. He was warning me. He was saying, "This is the path you are drifting toward. Wake up." The scene changed again. All the bright colors of the city disappeared. Everything went dim, cold, almost heavy. I believe the Lord was showing me what the world might look like after the rapture. A place stripped of hope. And then I saw them. 2 little children sitting in a car, alone. Their faces pale, their bodies weak. When I touched their foreheads, they were burning with fever. As a parent myself, that image cut through me. I unbuckled their seats and held one in my arms. The air felt bitter cold. These children looked abandoned, not because they were unloved, but because their parents had likely been left behind, struggling to survive. I later saw a group of adults in the distance, the children's family, walking away with other kids in tow. The realization hit me. These 2 had been left because they were sick, too weak to bring along. A picture of the desperation and heartbreak that might fill the world after the rapture. The dream wasn't just about me. It was about all of us, about our families, about the people we love, about the consequences of not being spiritually ready. And the deeper message was clear. The rapture will divide households, not by God's desire, but by human choices. God used that dream to show me both outcomes, being taken up and being left behind, so I could understand what's at stake for every soul. When I finally woke up from that dream, I sat at the edge of my bed for a long time. The room was quiet, a kind of quiet that makes you aware of your own heartbeat. The ticking of the clock on the wall felt heavier than usual, as if each second was asking me to think, really think, about the moments we still have left. I replayed the images in my mind, the children in the car, the city that turned dark, the mark on my forehead, and that terrifying moment when I believed I had been left behind. You know, at this stage in life, many of us realize something. God doesn't always use words to reach us. Sometimes He uses experiences, moments that stir us, confront us, or simply stop us in our tracks. When you're in your 50s, 60s, or 70s, you've lived through enough to know that the things shaping us the most are often those quiet, personal moments. And that dream was one of those moments for me. I want you to pause with me for a moment. Think about the things you've placed at the center of your life. Maybe it's your family, your children, your work, or dreams you've carried for years. None of those are wrong, but sometimes they take a seat in our heart that belongs only to God. I've talked with many older believers who told me they always thought they'd get serious about their faith later, once life slowed down a bit. But time moves differently than we expect, and one day,
we look back and realize we've been drifting. The rapture isn't a story meant to frighten us. It's a reminder of a promise, a reminder that Jesus is coming, and that his arrival will be sudden, like a thief in the night, as Scripture says. What affected me most in the dream wasn't the moment of being lifted up. It was the moment right before that, when I thought, I've missed it. That feeling, that sense of finality, held a weight that stayed with me long after the dream ended. And I don't ever want you or anyone to feel that. People often ask me, how do I know if I'm ready? And my answer is always the same. You don't have to be perfect, but your heart needs to be pointed toward him. Being ready isn't about how many times you've been to church or how many verses you've memorized. It's about whether your heart is still open, whether Jesus is still first, whether your life belongs to him more than it belongs to the world. The dream reminded me of something important. Being set apart doesn't mean withdrawing from life. It means living in a way that reflects the one you belong to. It means not letting the noise of the world drown out the voice of God. I'm reminded of a man I once prayed with, a gentle, wise man in his 70s. He told me that every morning, before touching his phone, before turning on the news, he would sit in silence for just 5 minutes. He'd put his hand over his heart and whisper, "Lord, I'm here." That simple practice kept him grounded, not because it was a ritual, but because it kept his heart soft. When I think back to the dream, I realize God wasn't showing me two separate endings to frighten me. He was showing me a choice, a crossroads, a picture of where the path of distraction leads and where the path of obedience leads. He was saying, stay awake, stay close, don't drift away. The images of the tribulation, the heaviness, the sickness, the sense of abandonment, I believe they were meant to show what happens when the world is left without the presence of God's people. It's not God's desire for anyone to face that, but he honors human choices. And that's why I want to speak to you gently right now. If you feel something stirring in your spirit as you listen to this, don't ignore it. Maybe it's been a long time since you prayed. Maybe you've been hurt by people in the church. Maybe life has worn you down to the point where you feel disconnected from God. But hear me clearly. You are not too far. You are not too late. You are not invisible to him. The Lord is always ready to welcome you back, even if the world hasn't been kind, even if your journey has been messy, even if you feel unworthy. In fact, the people who feel the most unworthy are often the ones God wraps his arms around first. The dream showed me that time may be shorter than we think, but that truth shouldn't make us afraid. It should invite us to come home, to realign our hearts, to lift our eyes again. So tonight, when things quiet down and the house grows still, I hope you'll take a few minutes alone. Sit in that silence. Let the Lord speak to you. Let him remind you that he hasn't forgotten you. Let him steady your heart again. Thank you for staying with me until the end. May the peace of Jesus rest over your home, your mind, and everyone you love, today and every day that follows.